Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is bacon-wrapped chimichurri pork tenderloin. Well, today I'm excited to share with you guys a recipe that's kind of become, or is becoming, a summertime staple around here. Although I could certainly eat this dish year-round. We're cooking up pork tenderloin, which is one of my favorite cuts of pork because, well, it cooks up really quick, and despite the fact that it's a lean meat, it cooks up really juicy and rich, especially when you wrap it in bacon, of course. But the real star of the show today is this chimichurri that we're going to slather all over our pork tenderloin. Now these bright, herbaceous, kind of tangy flavors just cut through the fat of the bacon and help balance everything out. So let's get started by making our chimichurri. So the base of our chimichurri is our herbs, and we're starting with some Italian parsley. We've also got some cilantro. We're gonna do equal parts on these, and then some fresh oregano, a far lesser quantity of that, but I'm just gonna go ahead and break this down and measure it out. So we want probably about one bunch of each of these. If you break that down into a fine mince, it's probably gonna be about 1.5 cups of each of these herbs. And the great thing about this with the chimichurri is feel free to use those stems. There's plenty of flavor in those stems, and it's all gonna get blitzed together in the end anyway. All right, same story with the cilantro. Feel free to use up those stems. All right, so equal parts going into the food processor, 1.5 cups of each packed down. And we need about 3 tablespoons of this oregano. Now with the oregano, you want to avoid these woody stems. We're going to get rid of those. We just want to use the leaves. So a little bit more knife work here to do on our shallots. I'm just going to dice these down, looking for about 3/4 of a cup. Now, while we're at the board, also going to break down our garlic, which we're simply just crushing and peeling and throwing in the food processor to let the food processor break it down. 6 cloves. So in with the shallots and the garlic and everything else. We've got 3 tablespoons of capers, that brininess. Gonna do 1 tablespoon of Cattleman's Grill 8-second ride carne asada seasoning, and that's mostly just because anytime you're doing a chimichurri, nice to have some red pepper flakes in there, and this will get you covered from that aspect. Also gonna do just a little bit of salt, just kosher sea salt, and do a little bit of pepper. And then moving on to our liquids, we've got 6 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, which gives it its tanginess. And we need a good 3/4 cup of EVOO. That fat's just gonna help emulsify everything, carry the flavor all the way through. Now you can go as coarse or fine as you like on your chimichurri. You can even do this by hand. The reason we're breaking it down in the food processor today is because I want this almost a paste-like consistency so it just sticks right to the meat. That's it. That's all there is to it. Give a little taste for seasoning. Wouldn't change a thing. It's so bright. I love that acidity from the vinegar, though it doesn't just taste like straight up vinegar. It tastes like bright, fresh herbs and garlic. I love this stuff. So I want to reserve about 1/2 cup of our chimichurri to combine with some mayo that we're going to use as a dipping sauce in the end here. The rest of it we can just keep in the food processor for now. This is a really simple way to finish off this recipe, combining equal parts mayo, we're using the Dukes today, and chimichurri. It's like a cheater aioli here. Just technically we have garlic emulsified in there, so it almost is an aioli. Just don't say it on the internet and you're fine. All right, so that's gonna go get covered and sit in the fridge until we're ready to serve. So we're working with some Creekstone Farms Duroc pork tenderloins. This is what you should be looking for when you're at the store. Don't get this confused with a pork loin, which is going to be much larger around. In fact, it'd be about the size of 2 of these probably, and a much lighter color. We want these little guys, this dark, rich meat. And the only thing we really gotta do to clean these up is get some of this silver skin off of the surface. So this is the kind of stuff that just doesn't really break down when it's cooked, which is why we take it off, hopefully leaving all of the meat behind. Any spots where we see like just some fat on the surface, don't really mind that. There's no silver skin right underneath it, but it's this really thick, shiny, silvery white membrane that you want to get rid of. Otherwise, that's it. Looks good. So now that we've got these trimmed up, we're going to get some chimichurri on the outside. Give them a good slather. We're also going to season them up with our trail dust all-purpose seasoning, just to give it a little bit more salt, a little bit savory. This is certainly more than just a binder. We want a nice slather of the chimichurri. And then we'll hit it with our trail dust all-purpose seasoning. And let's get the other side. All right, so now that we've got these slathered and seasoned up, we're gonna do the bacon wrap. You wanna use a classic cut bacon, not a thick cut. It just takes too long to render it out on the grill. And we're essentially just gonna mummify this thing in bacon. Just overlap little by little until you've covered the entire surface of the tenderloin. It's nice that the bacon's like relatively cold so that it's not falling apart, but just warm enough that you can kind of stretch it out a little bit further. Make it go just a little bit further. And when it's just a little bit thinner like that, it's easier to render out. So there's one. All right, so the last one's wrapped up here. We've soaked up all this extra chimichurri, made sure all of that ends up on the pork in the end. And these are ready to go to the grill. So today we're cooking on the Yoder Smokers YS640S pellet grill, and we're running it hot, 500 degrees direct heat. So we're cooking on the grill grates to get some really nice color. As this bacon starts to render down, it's gonna wanna flame up underneath it. And that's all right, it'll give us a nice little bit of char. But we'll be able to control this because we've got this pushed all the way in our plate, so that we've also got a very indirect cooking zone on this side, which is where we can finish bringing up the internal temperature once we like the way the outside of the bacon looks. So here's about 5 minutes into the cook. You can hear that bacon hitting the grill grates. Oh yeah, we're getting some nice char. Carefully moving this around because it wants to flame up for sure when that fat hits. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes total cook time now. We're gonna start moving these over to indirect heat to finish. Now that we've got such great color on the outside, don't worry about losing a little bit of bacon. It's all gonna come off when we start slicing anyway. Right now, these are probably mostly sitting at about 105 internal. Let's check this out. That one's even colder. Yeah, we got 106 over here. So these are just gonna need some time to cook indirect to finish out. All right, these two skinny ones in the middle, I've come up to 140 internal. That bacon's looking beautifully rendered, so I'm gonna pull these off. These last two still have a good 5 to 10 degrees to go, so we're gonna let them ride. So giving the pork tenderloin about 5 minutes to rest. Now we're gonna start slicing our medallions out of here, which is how I'd like to serve this, these individual medallions. Just crack that open. Get an inside look there. Oh, that's juicy. Perfect. So you can put these out on a platter, on an individual plate, with a little bit of that chimichurri mayo underneath them. I'll lay out our slices here, our medallions, I should say. You get just a little bit of straight chimichurri left over that never touched our raw pork. I'll put that right on top for a little extra tang. And then typically I'd surround this with like grilled pineapple, sweet peppers, grilled onions. There's all kinds of options. All right, let's get the bite. That mayo and chimichurri together, we should be putting that on everything. Get the fattiness of the mayo, and the chimichurri cuts right through. That's a really good combination. Now, of course, the pork itself, just still super juicy, dripping. That bacon around the outside holds a lot of that moisture in, base it in its fat kind of while it cooks. As it mummifies and tightens up around it, it just holds all that goodness in there. With a little bit of rest time, I mean, that doneness is just about perfect. And of course, the flavor of bacon, you can't hate that. Chimichurri throughout. This is the reason this has become one of my go-tos lately. I just think it's got all of the right balance, all of the right flavors. And even though it feels like something I could eat in the dead of summer, I'm gonna want it in the dead of winter as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoy the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.